Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. Early results start trickling in for Brexit. Slight lead for supporters of remaining in European Union. Wild swings reported in the value of the pound. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Uzbekistan President Islam Karimov hold talks on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit. Trade and connectivity dominate discussions. Six militants killed in two separate encounters in North Kashmir's Kupwara district. Militants opened fire during search operations. United States Supreme Court delivers a 4-4 verdict on plan to prevent 4 million illegal immigrants from being deported. Split comes as a blow to President Barack Obama's 2014 executive action. Well, it's a neck-and-neck race in the referendum on the likely exit of the United Kingdom from the European Union. Of the results so far, the lead is wildly fluctuating between the Remain and Leave voters. Exit polls consistently showed voters split down the middle, with the outcome too close to call and wavering voters likely to determine the result. The first three of the results in the referendum, British Overseas Territory of Gibraltar, Newcastle in northern England and the Orkney Islands off the coast of Scotland, were victories for the Remain camp. Sunderland, also in northern England, was the first region voting to leave by a 61% to 39% margin. The financial markets quickly reacted to the Sunderland result, with the pound falling against the dollar. Polls closed at 10 p.m. local time. As results come in, they will be announced by region rather than by constituency. The 12 regions include Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales, London and 8 English regions. Almost 47 million people were registered to take part in the historic vote. Meanwhile, financial markets and politicians across the world are nervously watching the results of the Brexit vote. The EU referendum result that will be known in a couple of hours could well be the turning point in the UK's relationship with Europe and the rest of the world. If UK becomes the first country to exit the EU, it will arguably be the biggest blow to the 28-nation grouping since its formation. Here's more.
Britain, there's a lot of tension, a lot of anticipation. I think a lot of people see this as a once-in-a-lifetime chance, an opportunity to voice either their anger or their passion for the European cause.
Anticipation and anxiety as results started to trickle in for the historic vote on EU referendum. A record 47 crore people were registered to vote on Thursday, with a high turnout reported. In southeast of England, 2 polling stations saw huge participation despite bad weather. Votes are being counted at each of the 382 local counting areas, representing government areas in England, Scotland and Wales, Northern Ireland and Gibraltar.
I think that the referendum is also an opportunity to debate more deeply about some of the fundamental problems the EU has, particularly when we talk about democracy and when we talk about solidarity, social rights. I think these are questions that the referendum gives us an opportunity to question further.
The referendum ended a bitterly fought 4-month campaign that saw Prime Minister David Cameron pitted against senior colleagues in his own party who wanted Britain to leave. The Leave campaign, headed by Conservative MP Boris Johnson, argued that leaving the EU was the only way for UK to take control of its own affairs. He also called warnings about the possible economic impact of Brexit as scaremongering by a self-serving elite. However, Britain's allies and other European members want the country stays on in the grouping.
Insgesamt, glaube ich, müssen die Beratungen jetzt möglichst mit 28 weitergeführt werden und ansonsten mit allen Staaten, also mit 27. Aber meine Hoffnung setzt darauf, dass es vielleicht doch auch 28.
我们关注英国即将举行的英欧关系公投，我们尊重英国人民的选择，我们也一贯支持欧洲一体化的进程，愿意看到一个团结、强大和稳定的欧盟在国际事务中呢发挥重要的作用。至于跟英国的关系，
Cameron promised to hold a referendum on Britain's EU membership ahead of last year's general election, following pressure from his own MPs and the UK Independence Party. After the date of the referendum was announced, he threw himself into the campaign for Britain to remain. A Brexit vote could deal a fatal blow to Cameron's career, although he has vowed to stay on whatever the outcome. Bureau Report, Rajya, Sabha TV.
While Britons decide their country's fate, its fallout is likely to be felt across the world. On the home turf, experts feel if Brexit gets a green signal, India will feel the heat due to the volatility in the international financial markets. Here's a report.
All eyes are on Britain as it votes in the referendum, as the global economy will face Brexit's ripple effects. If EU loses one of its members, India too will be singed. The rupee may depreciate because of the double effect of foreign fund outflow and dollar rise. This may put pressure on petrol and diesel prices. 800 odd Indian companies operating in Britain and employing more than 1 lakh people will have to revamp their investment plans.
We are watching the situation. It is for the people in the United Kingdom to take a call. Either way, we will be observing the developments.
The EU is India's largest single export market with a population of nearly 500 million. India's bilateral trade with Britain stood at $14.02 billion in 2015-16, out of which $8.83 billion was in exports and $5.19 billion was in imports. The trade balance touched a positive $3.64 billion. Moreover, if Brexit becomes a reality, British imports would reduce by 25% globally, and this may severely hurt the Indian export market.
Britain from EU will have significant on the currency value, and if that happens, both the British pound as well as euro may depreciate further. And in that eventuality, when Indian exports are competing with these countries in the third country, they may face the heat.
India has been negotiating a free trade agreement with the EU, and the outcome of the vote will have a direct bearing on India's strategy. If Britain stays put, then India need not to rework the current line of negotiations. But if Britain quits, then this will create an additional need for India to ink a similar pact separately with the UK. Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, in other international news now, the United States Supreme Court on Thursday dealt President Barack Obama a harsh defeat by blocking his plan to spare millions of illegal immigrants from deportation in a split 4-4 ruling he called frustrating to those aiming to fix America's broken immigration system. The ruling, coming 7 months before Obama's term in office ends, marked the latest success of his Republican adversaries.
The United States top court delivered a split verdict on a plan to prevent 4 million illegal migrants from being deported. The divide comes as a blow to President Barack Obama's 2014 executive action in which he bypassed Congress to protect the immigrants. Obama called the deadlock heartbreaking.
I think it is heartbreaking for the millions of immigrants who made their lives here, who've raised families here, who hoped for the opportunity to work, pay taxes, serve in our military, and more fully contribute to this country we all love in an open way.
The US president told reporters that the US immigration system had been broken for 2 decades and the ruling will set it back even further.
For more than 2 decades now, our immigration system, everybody acknowledges, has been broken. And the fact that the Supreme Court wasn't able to issue a decision today doesn't just set the system back even further. It takes us further from the country that we aspire to be.
Obama's 2014 plan was tailored to let roughly 4 million people who have lived in the US since 2010, have no criminal record and have children who are US citizens or lawful permanent residents get into a program that shields them from deportation and supplies work permits.
See what I saw today, it certainly and undeniably breaks my heart. But I will tell you this, it will never break my spirit, nor should it ever break your spirit. And it only strengthens my resolve to fight for fairness, and it only strengthens my resolve and our resolve to fight for comprehensive immigration reform.
The ruling is now likely to further amplify the role the immigration issue will play in the presidential election campaign. Presumptive Republican nominee Donald Trump had already called for all illegal immigrants to be deported and pledged a wall between Mexico and the US if he is elected. The case reached the Supreme Court after a lower court struck down Obama's 2014 executive order last year. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, moving on. Now, Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Uzbekistan President Islam Karimov yesterday. Both leaders discussed ways to deepen bilateral cooperation between the two countries. The meeting followed Prime Minister Modi's meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping. Here's more.
Bilateral talks on the sidelines of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization summit. Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Uzbekistan President Islam Karimov discussed a wide array of issues on Thursday, chief among them being enhancing bilateral trade and improving connectivity. India will become a full-fledged member of the SCO along with Pakistan. Both were admitted as observers at the 2005 summit. SCO was formed at a summit in Shanghai in 2001 by the presidents of Russia, China, Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, Tajikistan and Uzbekistan. The Prime Minister, who is on a second visit to the country within a year, conveyed India's decision to extend the e-tourist visa to Uzbek nationals. Both the leaders noted that cooperation was growing in defence and an MOU on cybersecurity had been concluded. India is also expected to organise the Festival of India and an Indian trade exhibition in Uzbekistan to mark 25 years of Uzbekistan's independence and the 25th anniversary of establishment of diplomatic relations with India. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, even after the special session of the NSG plenary, China belligerently led the opposition to India's membership of NSG at a 3-hour post-dinner meet, which also ended in a deadlock. Reports suggest the deadlock continues as the group could not reach a consensus on the issue. Brazil, Austria and Ireland have also joined China in expressing its reservation on inducting India, which has not signed the NPT yet.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi met Chinese President Xi Jinping in Tashkent for bilateral talks on Thursday. Ahead of the meeting, however, China sought to de-link its opposition to India's membership of NSG from Sino-Indian ties, saying it does not concern the bilateral relationship.
Prime Minister Modi urged China to make a fair and objective assessment of India's application and judge it on its own merits. He said that China should contribute to the emerging consensus in Seoul.
Japan is understood to have even welcomed India's application, asking that it be considered. The Indian camp in Seoul, led by Foreign Secretary S. Jaishankar, is looking at the special session with cautious optimism. Diplomats in the know say there may be several possible outcomes from the session. The NSG could agree to put off the decision until the next plenary next year or at a special plenary later this year. It could also agree to China's demand for a criteria-based process and refer it to a committee that could involve delays as India and Pakistan's current applications are considered. For acceptance as a member, India needs to ensure every NSG member is on board, as even one no vote would scuttle its chances. India's bid is opposed not only by China but also by countries like Turkey, Ireland, Austria and New Zealand. The final decision is likely to be known only by Friday when the group issues a statement on the plenary. Meanwhile, France has joined the US and the UK in supporting India's bid, urging on other NSG members to do the same. Russian President Vladimir Putin has also said that India's case was special and must be supported within the ambits of international law. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on to news from Germany now. A masked gunman stormed a cinema on Thursday afternoon, taking hostages before he was killed by the police. The rifle-wielding man entered the cinema in Wernheim, near Frankfurt in western Germany, with police receiving reports of 4 shots fired. However, no one was reportedly injured. German government said that the attacker acted alone and appeared to have been disturbed. The motive for the attack remains unclear, but German police said that there's no indication that the incident was terror-related. Prior to the attack, police had repeatedly warned that Germany could be targeted by the Islamic State. Here's a roundup of the other international news in our World Wrap. Lashkar-e-Jhangvi terrorists were charged by a Pakistani anti-terrorism court in the 2009 Sri Lanka cricket team attack case. 3 suspects are on bail while the remaining are held in Kot Lakhpat jail. The court summoned prosecution witnesses on June 30th. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon condemned North Korea's practice missile launch on Wednesday, calling it a brazen and irresponsible act. In a statement read by his deputy spokesperson Farhan Haq, he accused the nation of violating its international obligations, saying North Korea's actions are dangerous to the security of their own country. The UN has warned that fighting against Islamic State in Iraq could force up to 2.3 million people from their homes this year as the battle for Fallujah grinds. Baghdad has officially declared victory. According to UN, more than 3.4 million people across Iraq have already been forced to leave their homes. A tornado and hailstorm killed at least 78 people and injured nearly 500 in the East Chinese province of Jiangsu. Chinese President Xi Jinping ordered an all-out rescue effort to help those affected by the storms. Meanwhile, medical staff are making all efforts to treat the injured. It's time for a short break now, but news and updates will continue on the other side. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
One of the most influential revolutionaries of Indian freedom struggle, Shaheed Bhagat Singh. Born into a Sikh family, patriotism flowed in his blood at the age of 13. When he formed Naujawan Bharat Sabha to spread the message of revolution in Punjab. In the wake of avenging Lala Lajpat Rai's death, Bhagat Singh and his associates coined the catchphrase Inqilab Zindabad. But towards the end of their rebellion, they had to pay a heavy price for their patriotism. Following the blasts inside the corridors of the assembly, both Bhagat Singh and Batukeshwar Dutt courted arrest. Bhagat Singh was sent to the gallows in Lahore with his fellow comrades, after which he was cremated in Hussainiwala on the banks of Satluj.
Tales that inspire. Stories of social change. A salute to diversity. Promoting public discourse. Events that motivate. Inspiring the innovative spirit. Watch Rajya Sabha television documentaries. Mondays, Tuesdays and Wednesdays at 10:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha television. Well, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley on Thursday started his 5-day China visit, pitching for more investments in India. Finance Minister addressed Business Forum Investment in India, in which several Chinese businessmen and heads of state-run firms participated. The minister has also interacted with Chinese wealth funds and banks in Beijing, seeking investment in the infrastructure space in India. On day one, he met Bank of China's chairman Tian Guli and also held a roundtable meet with the heads of sovereign wealth funds, institutional investors and banks. His other engagements during the 5-day visit include talks with his Chinese counterpart Lu Jiwei. Arun Jaitley will also attend the board governors meeting of the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank, in which India is the second largest investor after China. Well, the Income Tax Department has assigned senior officers to be a single point of contact to attract potential declarants under the domestic black money window. This is to assure declarants of confidential and hassle-free disclosures. The Central Board of Direct Taxes has also decided setting up of facilitation centers across the country, giving wide publicity and monitoring at the highest level. The jurisdictional principal commissioner or commission of income tax has been made designated authority to whom disclosures are to be made. Designated officers have been asked to provide all procedural facilities to avoid the requirement of any additional interaction with anyone else in the office. The 4-month window allows domestic black money holders to declare wealth by paying a tax penalty of 45%. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley had earlier asked people with undisclosed assets to use the limited period window to avoid trouble. Well, the BJP has dared its alliance partner in Maharashtra, Shiv Sena, to take divorce from them, escalating the war of words between the two. In an article published on Wednesday in the party's Maharashtra unit's fortnightly publication, Manogat, BJP spokesperson Madhav Bhandari dared Sena to walk out of the alliance while enumerating the sacrifices the party has made in the past 25 years to keep the tie-up intact. The article also attacks Sena MP Sanjay Raut for his recent Nizam remarks, criticizing Raut for his selective vision. Sanjay Raut had recently said that the BJP-led governments at the centre and in Maharashtra were worse than the government of Nizam.
It is important to see that whom the Indian voter supports. And that is more important, because Shiv Sena, whenever it criticizes the government, it is not on particular person, but it is pertaining to a policy of the government which we always criticize.
Another national news now, 6 militants were killed in 2 separate encounters with security forces that broke out in North Kashmir's Kupwara district. 3 militants were killed in the first encounter after a joint team of army and police acting on a tip-off launched a search operation in the nearby forest area. It was during the search operation that militants opened fire on the security personnel who later retaliated. In the ensuing gunfight, 3 militants were killed. Meanwhile, another shootout between security forces and militants broke out in Drugmula area of Kupwara district on Thursday evening, where 3 more militants were killed. The gun battle began when security forces started searching the forests in Drugmula after they received reports that some militants were hiding there. Soon after the incident, police, CRPF and the army cordoned the area. Well, after successfully launching PSLV C-34 from Sriharikota, ISRO, as part of the Make in India initiative, is seeking to support of private sector investment in spacecraft systems. Inaugurating the conference on enabling spacecraft systems realization through industries in Bengaluru, ISRO Chairman A.S. Kiran Kumar said it was imperative that the Space Research Organization join hands with industry in its effort towards enhancing its capacity in order to meet the increased demand for space-based services. He informed delegates about India's potential to capture a sizable portion of business in the international space market. Around 110 industries in aerospace business participated in the conference, who presented their capabilities and expressed their commitment to partner with ISRO. Moving on to some sports news now. Former captain and India's most successful bowler Anil Kumble was appointed as the national cricket team's coach for the next 1 year. The BCCI announced the decision after discussions with all stakeholders. Kumble, who will be the first full-time Indian coach after 16 years, will start his tenure with India's 4-test tour of the West Indies in July.
After doing discussions with the various stakeholders, we have taken the final call that for next 1 year, Mr. Anil Kumble will be the head coach.
BCCI ended the suspense over who will coach Team India, handing the reins of the national cricket team to India's most successful bowler. Former India captain Anil Kumble was appointed coach of the national side for 1 year, with his tenure to begin with India's 4-test tour of the West Indies in July.
I'd like to thank the BCCI for showing faith in me, and the committee, the Cricket Advisory Committee, for showing faith in me. And yeah, it's a huge responsibility, like I mentioned. I've always put my hand up for challenges, and I'm ready to take up this role.
45-year-old Kumble pipped former team director Ravi Shastri, Australians Tom Moody and Stuart Law, and a host of others to clinch the high-profile position.
The decision followed an elaborate selection process headed by a 3-member cricket advisory committee comprising greats Sachin Tendulkar, VVS Lakshman and Sourav Ganguly.
And I think we have kept it very transparent. As per the set criteria, who qualified, who did not qualify, and their presentations, how they can take Indian cricket forward. So I think all that has been considered. There was no such limitation that we have to look for only Indian coach. We wanted the best for the Indian team.
Kumble is India's highest wicket taker in both Tests and ODIs, finishing with 619 and 337 wickets respectively in a career spanning almost 2 decades. After retirement, Kumble had a stint as a mentor with IPL teams Royal Challengers Bangalore and Mumbai Indians. He is the first Indian to be appointed full-time coach since Kapil Dev resigned in September 2000. After the 2015 World Cup, the post of head coach had fallen vacant. Ravi Shastri had run the team as its director since before his contract expired after the World T20. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a good day.